Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for investing in your education and purchasing this webinar. My name is Dennis Gebhart, and on behalf of Guru Village, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to walk you through CodeBreaker, which is a class in color correction mastery. You know, when we talk about color correction, it's probably one of the most emotion-evoking services that we perform in the salon. And I think a lot of it is because there's so many things that can go wrong, and sometimes we don't know where to begin first. So today what I want to do in this short session that we have together is to give you some guide points that might help you and encourage you to attend a live program with us, either at our institute here in California or possibly one of our on-the-road programs, Guru on-the-road programs, or we have a program that we do online, which is also a color correction program, and I'll talk to you more about that a little bit later. So it's great to have a visual, and I'm going to give you some visuals today, but it's also great to work with a coach right by your side so you can really master some of these techniques that we're going to discuss. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and minimize myself, take myself out of the picture, so I'm out of your way, and we shall begin. So let me begin by saying that this following presentation was developed by myself for Guru Village, and any use or publication of this information without express permission from the author is prohibited. What does that mean? That means for you, this is your resource. You are more than entitled to use this as a resource for yourself, your own personal learning. I ask that you don't reproduce any of this information on social media. And if you are a trainer and you are taking this class, I'm going to ask you, if you plan on using this in your training programs, please make sure you get it cleared with us first, because again, this is our intellectual property. So thank you for that. Let's begin. I'm going to focus on three things in this session today. Naturally, we don't have 3 hours together. We only have a shorter window of time. So I'm going to focus on three things. Number one, I'm going to focus on your affirmation. You're going to hear me share some things with you during this class that you've probably heard before. That's a good thing. That means that you and I are like-minded thinkers, and that means we're both on the same page. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. It's great to hear repetition. In fact, my mentor used to always say, more oftentimes than not, we need to be reminded rather than taught. I'm also going to focus on discovery in this program. My goal is hopefully help you discover some things that might help you in your color correction situations in the salon, or maybe approaching color correction in a slightly different way. And number three, we're going to focus on empowerment. My goal is to, hopefully you will feel empowered at the end of this program. You will feel that you've been given some new tools, some new ways of working with color correction that will aid you on your pathway to success. So I'm going to ask a big favor of you. You know, I know you're already a successful hairdresser. You're doing hair in the salon. You're obviously generating revenue, making income. And some of the things that I'm going to say may contradict some of the things that you have learned in the past. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of flip your mind from closed mind to an open mind, take in the information, write down the notes, and let it percolate. I always believe that reflecting on the information, digesting it, reviewing it, testing it before you apply it helps the information really absorb well. Many times learning new information can be difficult because we're trying to, one, eliminate or remove or push back some of the things that we've been taught all of our life to accept new information, and then we're trying to find a place for that new information. So you can understand that it is probably a challenge. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of open your mind, take all the notes, and let it kind of digest and percolate. If you find a few things here that will help you in your color correction, great, then it has been a success. On the other hand, if you find things in here that maybe don't work for you, that's okay too, because at least that's still called learning. You've learned what things don't work for you. So in any case, open your mind. I'm going to take you at your word. Hopefully you're saying, all right, I'll keep my mind open, and we'll begin. So let's start with an exercise. Here is Sherlock Holmes, the sleuth. And here is your exercise. So what you need is a clean piece of paper. And I'm going to click this slide, and then I'm going to give you some time to work on this. So here we go. Let's imagine this is our client. She comes into the salon and she brings you a picture of the client on the right-hand side. And she says, I want to be there. Not a haircut. She doesn't want a haircut. She wants to simply be that color based upon the color that she currently has. So I'm going to ask you to map out your journey. I want you to put this slide program on pause for just a moment. I want you to take about 5 minutes, and I want you to map out your journey. What steps would you go through to take this client from, which is obviously an extremely lighter head of hair, to this deeper shade of hair color? You may want to look close to make sure you get your tonalities right, but I want you to walk through the steps, okay? So put the slide on pause and take about 5 minutes now, and then you can start the program again. All right, so I'm sure we had lots of answers, lots of different things going on. Let's think about what the steps would have been for that. The steps would have been, first of all, analyzing the difference between the target level and the starting level. As you can see, the starting level was probably a level 8 or level 9. Hopefully you caught the regrowth. There's about 45% gray on the regrowth. She's about a natural level 6. Excuse me. Natural level 6, about 45% gray. So you can't use the same color from scalp to end. So it's going to require some steps. That hair on the mid-lengths to the ends probably has had some chemical history, besides being naturally curly, or it could be permed hair, which means that you would probably have to clarify the hair and treat the hair first. Then you would probably go into the lighter strands of hair and you would fill that hair back. And then once you got that hair filled back, then you could apply your final color at her scalp area, taking into consideration you have to formulate for gray and apply that final color. So there's several steps involved in that process. If you miss some of those steps, like if you didn't condition, if you didn't fill the hair, and look at the distance between the starting level and the ending level. The starting level was at a level 8 or 9. The ending level is somewhere around a 3 or 4, or some of you might say a 5. But in any case, it was much more than 2 levels different, which tells me that the law of color says when there's more than 2 levels difference between the starting level and the target level, I have to fill, or what we call pre-pigmentize the hair first. So several steps had to be included in that process to get that client where she needed to be. So here's the only 4 things that really can be wrong with hair in color correction. There's only 4. 1, hair can be too dark, in which case we have to lighten the hair. Now, in this example, there was no hair that was too dark than your target, so no lightening was required. Hair can be too light, which in this case was an example, which tells me that if the hair is too light, I'm going to have to gradually take that hair back to a deeper shade. The reason that we do that by filling is so that we can make sure that we put the right colors back into the hair and that they're supportive of each other. Next, hair can be too warm. I would say probably the starting level with this client was too warm for the target level. So we would have to make, number 1, take her darker, and we'd have to control some of the warmth. It could be too cool, which really is not happening on the mid-lengths to the ends, but there is coolness at the scalp because of the gray hair. And so now you're going to have to adjust that formula to adjust for cool while you're adjusting for the warmth on the ends, and also incorporate pre-pigmentizing. So can you see how quickly my mind just broke that down of the things that we need to do? And we do that by what we call sequential thought. I ask myself, when I look at a color correction scenario, these 4 questions. Is it too dark? Is it too light? Is it too warm? Is it too cool? And that helps me to narrow down or focus on what really the strategies need to be to get that color result that I'm looking for. Now, what happens if all four of these things are on the same head of hair? That means you're working on 4 different heads of hair, and each one has to be addressed individually. Now, I know people say, well, how can I make it happen sooner? Here's the fact. In color correction, sometimes to get the optimum result, it's not about how quick you can do it, but it's how accurately you can do it. So here's what I want you to do. Take a few minutes, stop the program, take your pad, and write down any questions that you have, any discoveries that you have made, and the information that I've just shared with you. Write those down on your notepad. Take about 3 minutes to do that, and then you can start the program back over. I'll see you in 3 minutes. All right, welcome back. I guess you probably have some questions, and you've hopefully made some discoveries. Now, naturally, because we're here and I'm pre-recorded, I can't answer your questions directly. But here's what you can do. You can send them to me. You can send them to me at CPT Color, CPT Color at guruvillage.net. CPT Color at guruvillage.net. And if you send those questions to me, I'll make sure I try to get the answers for you. Or you can message me on Facebook Messenger or however you wish to reach out, and I'll try and help you with those questions. All right, so speaking of questions, we always have questions when it comes to color correction. You know, someone asked me one time, they said, well, what is color correction exactly? They said, just tell me these things that I want to know. What is color correction? So I'm going to give you the definition. You may want to write this down. Color correction is achieving an acceptable result based upon the following criteria: condition of the hair, color or colors within a hair strand, the goal, that means where is she going from the starting level to the target level, and strategies that are implemented. Let me say that to you one more time. Color correction is achieving an acceptable result in direct relationship with the following criteria: condition of hair, color or colors on the head or in a single strand, the client's goals, and the strategies that we implement. Because condition of hair is going to be a big determining factor. My mentor always said to me, if you want optimum results, you have to have optimum condition. And as you probably will agree, most color correction scenarios are not done on hair with optimum quality condition. Normally the hair is in a very, very poor state. So that's what I call color correction. And the key word is acceptable, meaning that there are going to be situations sometime to where you won't be able to achieve the result that your client wants in one visit. And we have to be honest with them. We have to be honest with them and tell them up front whether or not that can even be achieved. Another question is, what's the challenge? That's the thing you have to do. You have to assess. I break it down into 3 areas. There's what I call minor adjustments, I call moderate, and then there's extreme. Minor adjustment, mild correction would be tonal shift. The hair color faded. I toned the hair and it wiped out my highlights. That would be very mild, minimal adjustment needing to be done. A more moderate would be band lines in the hair. Areas where I had to really work on getting the hair evened out or balanced more. That's going to take more than one step, probably 2, maybe 3 steps to get that client taken care of. And of course, extreme is where it's more than 3 steps. You're going to have to lighten the hair, you're going to have to treat the hair, you're going to have to color the hair back, you're going to have to do a final color over it, and then you may be putting in dimension also. So assess those challenges, because that helps you understand how much time to book, and it also helps you understand what the charge is that you're going to be charging for the service. Where do you begin? That's the biggest frustration for many of us, is like, where do we begin first? What do we do? Um, we ask ourselves, what are the steps? And are there steps? There are steps. And if you follow that pathway, and you can jump on that pathway at any place, but there's definitely a pathway from where you are to coming to an area to where the hair looks beautiful again. So knowing where to begin is always frustrating. That's why we hit the brakes when we have a client color correction come in the salon. Usually we'll go back to the room and see if we can gather together other teammates and take a consensus. What do you think I should do? I don't know. What do you think I should do? So, these questions are quite common. And the reason that they're common is because no one has really ever given us a pathway to follow. And that's our goal today, is to help you do that. Of course, what tools and products do I use? There's so many different tools and products, and they are as important as your application, as your formulation, as your strategies are. The tools and products that we use. Sometimes we use tools that are more aggressive or too aggressive for the hair. The hair won't support that aggressive of a product. As my mentor always said, you can shoot a rabbit with a cannon, but you don't have much rabbit left. So instead of going after the things with the harshest, most aggressive chemicals possible, let's look and see if there is an option to leave some integrity in that hair during that color correction process. And I think many times you'll make discoveries that there are. So in our program, the pathway, we all look for the pathway. In our program called Master the Disaster, we teach the 7 steps. It is taught online. It's also taught in our live at our Guru Institute here in Upland, California. And it's going to be being taught on some of the Guru on the Road programs that we'll be doing. So I encourage you to check out when we're doing that program, because that's the opportunity to walk you through all of the individual steps, to see how you perform, to see how you apply color, all of those things that are necessary to make it successful. So I invite you to do that. But here's what I want to do with this program. I want to give you some coaching tips, some things, rules of thumbs that you can follow that will help your color corrections become more successful, and it will also help you maintain that credibility as a professional during the process. So here's some of the coaching tips. Number 1, set the parameters of the expectation before beginning the service. This is huge. Sometimes we go into a service promising something that we know is not going to end well. I'm sure we've all, what I call, go on that journey that we know is not going to end well at all, but we go on the journey anyway. We acquiesce to the client, and at the end of the service, then we have to bear the guilt or the brunt or the responsibility of the service not being successful. So set the parameters from the beginning. If the client has been using black color on her hair for the last 15 years, and now she's your 11 o'clock appointment, she wants to be sandy blonde, and she has a 5 o'clock cocktail party, the chances of you achieving that result are pretty minimal. Even if you have additives that you add to your lightener, it's still going to be pretty minimal for you to be able to achieve that. So be honest and upfront with them. Color correction is always a higher fee. If you're pricing color correction, remember, you don't discount color correction. And sometimes we get caught in that because we're such emotional people. We go, well, I can't charge her that much. I believe it's worth that, but I can't charge her that much. Stop it. Okay, you have to charge what it's worth. And even if this helps you, the cost of product, whatever product you use, write down the cost of your product. If you use a full tube of color that maybe you pay $7 for or $9, whatever your product price is, if you that, and you use a couple of bowls of lightener, and then you use a demi-permanent color, and then you use protein treatments. Here's what the experts say. Cost of product should never exceed 10% of the service fee. So keep that in mind when you're pricing out your color correction services. Sometimes we end up giving time away. And remember, time is all you have to sell. You're selling your time. So don't be giving it away just because you're fearful. Charge what it's worth. Okay. My mentor used to always say a good rule of thumb is to take whatever your hourly production rate is and charge double. Meaning that if you don't know your hourly production rate, here's how you figure that out. You take the money you have brought in, the revenue you have earned in the last 30 days, you divide it by the hours that you have worked, and that gives you your hourly production rate. So let's say if your hourly production rate is $40 an hour, that means you should be charging $80 an hour for color correction. So if it's a 3-hour color correction, it's a $240 fee. So this kind of gives you an idea of what you should be charging for correction. Explain the difference between a cure and a Band-Aid. What do I mean by that? Clients come into the salon and they say, look, I want the cure. I want you to fix it. Take it back to what it was, but I've only got this much time. And so we try to do that, right? We try to play beat the clock. We try to get everything done in that allotted amount of time that the client provided us, and we know it's not going to work in the first place. So here's what I do. I have a grease pencil. You can buy those at any art store. And I write on the mirror for my client. I say, I'm going to write something on the mirror. I want you to think about this. I'm going to go to the back. I'll be back in a little bit. And I write down 2 things. I write time versus success. I say, here's what I want you to do. Think about these 2 words, time or success. Which one is most important to you? I'll be right back. And I go to the back room and I count 1001, 1002, 1003. And I come back and I go, okay, which one is most important? Well, time. Okay, great. So today we're not going to give you the cure. Today we're going to give you a Band-Aid because that's all we have time for. And they say, but no, I want it fixed completely. I say, okay, so you want the cure. Well, for the correction, the total cure of this situation, this is how much time it's going to take. So you need to book yourself accordingly. You need to just clear your appointments so that we can get this taken care of. Be honest with them up front. Don't try to do a color correction on the fly, because if you end up and you're not successful, that damages your credibility as a professional. It's better that we're upfront and honest in the beginning. When lightening hair, if I have previously tinted hair and I have to lighten hair, I address the darkest sections first. So I'm using my lightening product, or if you're using a color removal product, you would use that color removal product. Remember, most color removal products will only break down or dislodge the intermediary dyes. It will unhook them, literally. That's what you're doing, like unhooking railroad card. And so then when you do the test with your peroxide and then you shampoo that product out of the hair may still not be light enough for you. So if I'm going in and I have to apply it to an area where there's light spots and dark spots, I'm going to address the darkest spots first. Now, the reverse applies when I'm going darker. When I'm tinting hair back from a lighter shade, I always address the lightest sections first. So if my lightest section's a level 9 and my medium section's a level 7, I'm going to take and address that level 9 and bring it down to a level 7. If my target's a level 5, I'll bring my 9 down to a 7. Then I'll bring my 7 and my 9 together down to a 6, and now I'll put my 5 over the top of them. So that's just some strategies on when you're working on hair color, how you address it. Always treat hair after lightening or a removal service prior to the next step. Treatments. I cannot tell you how important that is during the color process, because every time you lighten hair, you are breaking down the structure of the hair fiber. So if we're not putting something back in that hair to help the hair get through the next phase, by the end of the service, that hair will have no integrity at all. When do we pre-pigment or fill the hair? Pre-pigmentizing is what I call it, pre-pigging. Filling means, we're putting color back in the hair. Here's when we do that. That service is done when there is more than 2 levels difference between the starting level and the target level. Automatically, if there's more than 2 levels difference between the starting level and the target level, and I'm tinting a head of hair back, I'm going darker, I'm going to pre-pigmentize that hair. In fact, in lighter shades like level 9 and level 8, if that hair is at a level 8 and I'm trying to take her to a level 7, if that level 8 is uneven, let's say I lightened the hair and I took all the artificial pigment, broke it all down, and now I'm at a level 8, but it's kind of uneven. It has light spots and dark spots and light spots and dark spots in it. I'm going to pre-pigmentize that level 8 so that it's an even tone canvas. So when I put my 7 on top of that, that I get a true even color. Remember this, if the hair strand you're coloring has light and dark areas, your color result will be light and dark. The only exception to that would be when you're making black hair. All right, always measure pre-pig to be a half a level to a level lighter than the target at the end of the process. What does that mean? If my target's a level 5 and I'm filling the hair, I want to make sure that that fill at the end of the process is setting at least at a level 5.5 to a level 6. I want to be no more than a half a level to a level lighter than my target level. For best results, pre-pig with demi colors. The reason I recommend demi colors is because those that are true demi processed at a pH of 7 or lower. So they're more forgiving to hair that's already in a porous state. Does that mean you cannot pre-pig with permanent colors? No, it does not mean that at all. You can pre-pig with permanent colors, but the reason I choose not to use them is because permanent colors are higher in alkalinity. Higher alkalinity is going to swell the cuticle. If the hair is already in a weakened condition, why would I want to use something with more alkalinity on that hair? It's just going to create excessive swelling unnecessarily. So that is why demi colors are really the best for pre-pigging the hair. Now, some people say, well, I use semi-colors. Nothing wrong with pre-pigging with a semi-color. The difference is that a semi-color is a large direct dye. So you are depending upon that semi-color. If I'm using a semi-color to pre-pig the hair, I do not shampoo it out of the hair. I simply rinse the hair, blot the hair, dry the hair. I'll spray an acidifying rinse on it, probably to acidify it. And then I will apply the color over the top of it, because remember, you're placing large direct dyes in there. And the next color you use, which would be your permanent color, your final color, hopefully that permanent color, those small colors, intermediary dyes, will bind around the large dyes and help hold them in the hair. If you color with a semi and then shampoo it out and then put a color on, you're losing half the color that you wanted to put into the hair in the first place. All right, when formulating your final color, if it's a level 5 or darker, the volume of developer that I choose is 6%, 20 volume. Why? Because we all think 20 volume, we think lift. I don't even think about developer that way. Here's what I do think about. 20 volume, because it's developer, and the characteristic of a developer is to fracture pigment. 20 volume is going to fracture pigment, not necessarily what's in the hair, but it's going to fracture the artificial pigment that's in the bowl. And so it's going to give me a result that has slightly more reflect. So that dark hair will not look so flat or matte. It will look more like natural hair color would, with a bit of reflect. Level 6 and lighter, because there's there's much less pigment in level 6 and lighter shade, you can use 1.5 to 3% developer and you'll get a fine result. You won't lose any reflect and it all works well. Post-consultation. Set your return visits in a post-consultation. Client says, when should I come back? And they always ask, will my color fade? I always tell them yes. I say, but there's acceptable fading and unacceptable fading. Acceptable fading is when hair color fades from 1/2 to 1 level in 30 days. Unacceptable fading is when hair color fades from 1/2 to 1 level in 2 weeks. So acceptable fading means that color is going to fade. Now, we just colored fragile hair. Do you think it's possible that it will fade different than a normal color service? Possibly. And that's why it's imperative that they come back within 30 days so that you can take a look at that hair. Now, in our salon, we offer what we call a 7-day hair color checkup, which means that in 7 days, those clients come back for a 15-minute appointment. They sit down in the chair. We check the mid-lengths and the ends against the scalp area. If there has been no fading in the first 7 days of her shampooing on a regular basis, then you can pretty much guarantee that it was probably going to last for the next 23. So that little 7-day checkup might be beneficial for you, but in that post-consultation, it's as important as the first consultation. This is how soon you need to come back. Yes, your color probably will fade, but now you need to use support products. Support products are not an option. Support products are part of the service, meaning that you don't have a choice. You must use these products on your hair to maintain the color while you're away. All right, so here's what I want you to do. Take a couple of minutes. You can stop the program, put it on pause. Take about 5 minutes. I want you to write down any discoveries that you've made so far and any questions that you might have. Okay, so please stop the program, take about 5 minutes, and I'll see you back here in a little bit. All right, welcome back. I'm sure you have some questions. Hopefully you've made some discoveries. Remember, you can reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, or you can send me an email at cptcolor@guruvillage.net, and I'll be happy to respond to your questions and help you out the best that I can. All right, so let's talk about some special instances here. Let's talk about what happens when we're doing red shades and the red's not red enough. Have you ever seen that happen in the salon? And then people say, all right, I'm just going to mix up another batch of red and put it over the top. And then they're still not red enough. In fact, it looks like it's even less red than it was the first time around. Well, what's happened is that red on red on red on red actually ends up doing what we call bricking out, B-R-I-C-K, bricking out. And so you start to lose the reflect. You start to lose the brightness in the red. You say, well, then how do I keep the reds from losing their intensity? Think about this. When a client comes back to you and she's wearing red color, or she's a redhead, artificially colored, when she comes back, she's not lost all of the red tone in her hair. What she's lost is the reflect. So if she is a cool red, I will apply her regular formula on her virgin regrowth at the scalp, and then I will refresh the mid-lengths and the ends, and I will use a mahogany on a cool red to refresh the mid-lengths and the ends. Why a mahogany? Because a mahogany is a cooler version of the red shade, and it's going to put those cool red tones back in the hair. I do not refresh with a red at the same level. I refresh only what is missing. Okay? What if she's a warm red? If she's a warm red, I refresh her with copper. I add the missing copper that the red has lost between salon visits. Now we're talking about monthly visits. We're not talking about the client that comes in every 8 weeks where it's faded now to gold, or the client that you use 30 volume on to make the red brighter. If that client is if you're using 30 volume to make your red brighter, you're going to lose your pigmentation much quicker, much faster. That's why then support products like color enhancing shampoos are important to help you. But when you're working with reds, the thing that happens most of the time is that the reds on the mid-lengths and then start looking like they're brown. They don't look red anymore. And that's because they brick out with red over red over red. You can avoid that by just replacing the reflect and not trying to match the same shade. Remember that all red shades, unless they're pure tone, and even pure tone has some background, but all of them have brown in them. They have background. So you can imagine when you're adding brown over brown over brown over brown, you get a very, very muddy result after a period of time. There's a couple of things you could do to correct that. You could take a Well, you could take like an oil bleach and you could work that through the mid-lengths and the ends, let it process for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, take it off, and what would happen is it would remove some of that brown background and you would have more reflect in your red. There's lots of ways to create those effects, but the best way is to avoid them by keeping your refreshing formulas in this kind of a line. What about removing dark colors from the hair? When we remove dark colors from the hair, especially like this young lady has, an almost mid-back, previously tinted dark color, how do we get that dark color out? Now, a lot of people just do a cold application. That means they mix up a bleaching product, they apply it all the way to the mid-lengths to the ends, and what happens is it doesn't lift really as even as it could lift, and that a lot of times because it's a cold application. If it's really dark hair, what I use is what's called the isolation technique. Isolation technique I created many years ago, which is back-to-back foils. One foil right on top of the other. I think a lot of the companies have taken it now, and Paul Mitchell, I know, has changed it to the platinum card. So they changed the name, I guess, to protect the innocent. But by taking fine sections, think about this. You normally take finer sections when you foil hair than you do when you do a standard color. So by doing a isolation method when I'm decolorizing the hair, I'm forcing myself subconsciously to take finer sections, which means that the foil is going to help to incubate the process, and it's going to help the color move a little bit quicker. Remember, the law of color says the finer the mesh of hair, the lighter the visual result. So if I take fine meshes of hair, my hair is going to actually look lighter or become lighter because it's easier to work with. So doing back-to-back foils, use your lightning product. I would start probably on the mid-lengths and the ends. I lay my foil in, start on the mid-lengths and the end, apply it all the way out through the ends of the hair, and then I go back in after I let it set and I wait for the color to move, meaning I want to start to see red or red-orange in the hair. Once I start to see that, then I go back in and I start applying at the scalp with a weaker or a lower volume developer. And what that does, then the scalp will catch up because the scalp has only had one application. In virtually all cases, the scalp has only had one application. So it's going to be relatively easy for the scalp to catch up. Remember these things. Color will lift uneven because this hair is porous. It's older hair. It's had color on color, so it has variations in porosity. It only makes sense that it will not lift even. So you have to use that darkest section of hair as a guide, and also the lightest section of hair. Remember this, that yellow is a sign of life, so as long as the lighter colored hair has yellow still in it, it's still going to have some integrity. Older color is more difficult to lighten. That's a key essential thing. The older the color, the more difficult it is to lighten. The fresher the color, the easier it is to lighten. So finding out how long ago they had their color service will make a huge difference in how you formulate your color. Remember that all decolorizing must be followed with treatments. Absolutely. When I'm decolorizing the hair, I am breaking down the structure of the hair. Yes, I am breaking down artificial pigment, but I'm also breaking down the structure of the hair. So it is essential that I follow all those processes with treatments. When we are refining warmth, client comes into the salon and she says, you know what, the color you did, I like it, but it's too warm. Normally what you'll see happen is if the client has a level 5 warm brown, we use a level 5 ash brown to try and neutralize it. Well, here's what the law of color tells us. You can't neutralize at the same level. You cannot neutralize at the same level. So if I took a level 5 ash and I applied it to a level 5 brown head of hair, pigmented head of hair, artificially pigmented, that had warmth to it, I would make the hair darker, but it would still be warm. And the reason it would still be warm is because they were both at the same level. So here's the key thing to remember when you're trying to neutralize warmth. The challenge must be lighter, or the solution must be darker. We've all done this. We've all done that. We've taken that level 5 ash, applied it over that level 5 warm hair color result. It got darker, but it stayed warmer. So then we ended up going to a 4. We kept trying to bury our mistake. So it's real important to understand that. Even if she was this level 5, I would probably go through with maybe an oil bleach or a light level of color. And the reason I say oil bleach all the time is because there's no pigment in an oil bleach. So it's really easy to mix up. And I might paint that all through that hair, let it set 5 or 10 minutes just to bust through that dark level 5, to bring it up about a half a level. Once I've done that, then I could come back in with my level 5 ash, and I would have more than enough pigment in order to create the refinement and the coolness that I was looking for. All right, let's take a quick talk about dealing with unnatural tones. They're very, very common today with the advent of fantasy colors that are being used today. Now, most people, when they have a color in their hair and they want to change, most hairdressers take a bleach or a lightening product, or a lightening product that says it's not a bleach. They apply it to the hair and they try to remove the direct dye. And many times as a result, there's still a residue left in the hair. And if you're using a bleach, that's where people say, well, see, the bleach drove the color in deeper, which it did not. It simply means that when you use a direct dye on the hair, you're not only embedding the direct dyes in the cuticle, you're also staining the cuticle itself. Remember, the cuticle is translucent. It is not opaque. So it's sort of like those plastic things that hang down at the butcher section in the supermarket. So if I color the hair with a direct dye and I stain the cuticle, and then I try to lighten the direct dye, it only makes sense that the only way I could get all of the tone out of the hair would be to take off some of the cuticle, which now gives me hair that has a very poor integrity, and the hair's not going to hold color. So we kind of approach it a little bit differently. The tool that we use most often is understanding, first of all, that direct dyes are not all the same. Remember, today, in today's world, they're using direct dyes that don't necessarily come from the hairdressing industry. Some come from the automobile industry, some come from the fabric industry. And it's because we all wanted more longevity. And in order to give us more longevity, they had to change the type of dye. They had to go with a dye that would be a little bit more stable, which means they had to go outside the world of hairdressing. So those things are important. So I use a tool called the color wheel when I'm working with fantasy shades. And I use a process called naturalizing. That's naturalizing, not neutralizing. And the reason that I say that is because if you look on the outside of the wheel here, where all these colors set side by side, like red, orange, gold, orange, gold, yellow, where all they set side by side. What I know is that if I can naturalize, let's see this fuchsia color on top of our model here on the screen. If I can naturalize that or get that close to something that looks natural, when I go to lighten the hair, the hair will lighten much more successfully, only because visually I don't see this unnatural tone any longer because I brought it closer to a natural shade. So for me, if I was trying to lighten this color and create a more natural base to work over, I would probably add yellow. Now, if you look at that, yellow is still kind of, very close. But if I can make this a different color, if I could make this orange, if I could make it gold, even if I could make it the color of salmon, it would be much easier to lighten, to give her a lighter visual result. Now, what about the green here? The green, I would probably use something orange on the green. Wait a minute. We're supposed to use red. I know. But look at this. This is obviously pre-lightened hair. So the color of the canvas originally was blonde. And what's the dominant color in blonde? Yellow. What color do I add to yellow to make the color green? That color would be blue. So rather than using the complementary color for green, I use the complementary color for blue to create a shift and to bring that closer to something that looks more natural. So if I was correcting this head, on the top, I would use yellow. And on the bottom here, where the green is, I would use orange, okay? And then I've already got yellow down here, so that's good to go. And then I've got an orange down here that probably needs more yellow, so I would be yellow on top, yellow on the bottom, and then I would be using orange through this area, and I would bring it to something that was more natural looking. Then, if I wanted to lighten the entire head, I would have much more success because I would not see those off tones or unnatural tones remaining in the hair. So remember, what we do in naturalizing is we balance first, then we lighten, then we adjust if necessary. Balance, lighten, adjust if necessary. Are there more steps? Yes, there are more steps. Why can't I just use something to erase it? Because that's just bleach. And bleach will, and now the bleaches are so harsh and so caustic that they rip the hair apart. So why would you want to do that if the hair already has an integrity issue? This is a much safer way to do it. Now, could you do it the other way? You certainly could. But in our business, we know that you can do anything to hair once. But our job is to do it to hair over and over and over again and keep the hair on the head. So for me, beautiful hair color, the first two words say it all, beautiful hair. If I don't have hair that has integrity, it doesn't matter what color it is. As my friend used to always say, if you just color trash, you simply have a different color of trash. You don't have beautiful hair. All right, so you probably want to pause right now for just a minute, stop the program, and ask yourself these questions. What discoveries have I made from this information that's just been shared with me? What questions do I have? And then once you make your notations, then I'll see you back here. See you back here in about 4 or 5 minutes. All right, welcome back. I'm sure you have a list of questions now, and I'm sure you've made some discoveries. I want to close this session off today with taking a look at our canvas. You know, we spend so much time talking about our colors that we use and all of that. We don't spend enough time talking about the canvas. You know, this is the canvas in which we paint. It is called the hair. This is what a healthy hair looks like underneath a scanning electron microscope. You can see the cuticle layers and understand that the cuticle is not one layer, it is several layers. The average head is 7 to 10 layers of cuticle, and some resistant heads of hair have anywhere from 14 to 18 layers of cuticle. So this is the canvas that we work on. This is the only canvas in the world that literally, well, our canvas, I should say, not the only canvas in the world, but our canvas gives a color as we are applying a color. So when we formulate a hair color, we have to take into consideration what the hair is contributing. Now, in our world of hair coloring, we call it underlying pigment, or ULP. The fact is there's really, you're not looking at color. We call it color, but what you're looking at is reflect. Because when we lighten hair, we actually do that by reducing the protein structure of the hair. What do I mean? If you take the protein structure of the hair in its whole and we fracture it, as we fracture it, the bits and pieces get smaller. As they get smaller, they're no longer reflecting light, they're refracting light. So the light itself starts to look like a lighter visual result. So when we look at undertone charts and things of that sort, and we say, well, level 5 has red-brown in it, it really, you're not looking at red-brown. That's a guide for what kind of reflect you should be seeing. And that reflect is traditionally based upon the ratio of pheomelanin and eumelanin, the two types of pigment that are in the hair. Now, if you're not familiar with those, I recommend that you purchase the Color in Science video, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But that's what we're doing when we're coloring hair. So this is what a healthy hair strand looks like. So then we come into the picture, and one thing I do want to say too is, remember, hair has no pH. We talk about hair as though it has a pH. It does not. Hair is really, it's an indicator. It takes on the pH of whatever environment it is in. So if hair is in a highly chemically stressed environment, it will be negatively charged. If hair is in an acid environment, it will be more positively charged, and it will be more constricted. Cuticles will lay closer together. So hair itself doesn't have a pH, but it has an optimum environment, and that optimum environment is 4.5 to 5.5 in pH. Now look what happens after we get a hold of hair. Right here on the left-hand side, I want you to look at this. This is when the cuticle is completely gone. Let's go back here. The cuticle is completely gone on this hair. All now that this is the final section. What little bit of cuticle is still left, this is now the cortex. Now, this hair cannot be repaired. I want you to know this. We can glue it back together temporarily using additives, using proteins, things of that sort. But that hair is pretty much history. You can't rebuild the cuticle of the hair. And we do this when we over-abuse hair, chemically stress hair. And this is what's happening to hair when you do chemical work. Even though we don't see this with the naked eye, this is really, you have to know this is what's happening. Now up here in the right-hand corner, these are cuticle layers that have actually lost all of their CMC, which is the cuticle cell membrane complex, CMC, the lipids that are in the hair that helps hold those cuticle layers compact, have been worn away because this hair has probably been exposed to chemical services over and over and over again. And you can see they've lost some cuticle here. I mean, it's pretty damaged. And there's no way that these cuticle layers will ever lay flat again. They will not. The only way that you'll even get a visual that they might seem to lay flat is if you're using a heavy styling product on them and you're literally coating them. And then if you take your iron and you flat iron over the top of it, you can get them to look a little smooth. But even then, if you look at it really close, you'll see that there's still some cuticle that's uneven. So this is what happens when we do not pay attention to the chemical services that we're rendering for our client. Now here's a swollen cuticle, expanded cuticle, done just in a nice area. These cuticle layers are expanded, but they're not too overly expanded. But you can see that, and you look around the edge of those cuticle imbrications, can you see where the coloration changes? You see how they go from dark and then they got that white, like almost transparent thing happening there? That means that these areas have had a little bit more exposure, and that means that they're getting a little bit weaker. And then at the very bottom, of course, that is what split ends look like. And the only cure that I know of for split end at this time is physical adjustment, which means you simply have to cut the hair. Okay? So now that you know what the hair looks like after chemical service, you can understand why post-color strategies are very, very important. And I'm going to walk you through the strategies that we recommend and our entire team does in our salon. And these are the steps that we follow. First of all, when hair at the end of a color service, most hair is setting somewhere between a 9.5 and a 10.0 pH. So the first thing we do is we rinse until the water runs clear. By simply rinsing the hair with water, which has a pH of 7, we are lowering the pH. Let's imagine the client's hair is a pH of 9. We've rinsed it with water, and rinsing is not done in 30 seconds. Sometimes it's 3 to 5 minutes to rinse until the water runs clear. And it brings it down closer to a pH of 8. Then we're going to shampoo with a low pH shampoo, something around a pH of 4 if possible. And once we've done that, we lathered the hair with that. We rinse again. Now we've brought the pH of the hair down, maybe closer to a 7. Then we're going to shampoo a second time. This is where most salon professionals miss. They just say one shampoo is good enough. It is not good enough, especially in today's market. We're using a lot of colors that have a high ratio of MEA, monoethanolamine, in them. If you do not shampoo that hair thoroughly, the MEA will continue to work. It actually will continue to work even though the client's walking out the door. And about 3 to 4 months down the line, especially if they have finer hair, their hair will become very dry and very brittle. So that is why shampooing is so very, very important to do. And step number 4 is acidify with a low pH treatment. That will bring the hair down to a pH of 5.5. What we do is we use a low pH acidifying rinse at a pH of 3.5 after we've done the second shampoo, and we work that through the hair. We leave that in the hair, and then we apply an acidifying conditioner or treatment onto the hair. Let that set in the hair anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, and then we rinse the entire thing out. By spraying that acidifying spray into the hair, it literally stops the action of the alkalizers. And by stopping the action of the alkalizers, we prevent that hair from fading prematurely. That's what happens when you don't shampoo thoroughly, you don't do a good post-oxidation. The client leaves, the product continues to work in their hair, and now they come back and they have premature fading. So post-color strategy is just as important as everything else that we have done. All right, so we are at the end of our session. Here's what I want you to do. Take a minute. You can put me on pause. I want you to take maybe a couple of minutes and write down, what have your discoveries been in this session today? What kind of discoveries have you made that you can use in the salon? Number 2, what questions do you have? So those questions, you're going to send them to me if you wish. And the discoveries that you've made, I would love for you to send some discoveries to me as well. If you feel that this program has been beneficial, I would really appreciate you recommending it to your friends. This is not a full-on correction course, but what it is it gives you a start. I would recommend, if this is the first experience you've had with us at Guru Village, that you follow up with an online color correction course, or if you're able to get to one of our physical locations, get there so we can actually work with you side by side. It will make a huge difference in the way you react when it comes to color correction in the salon, and it will improve your skills. And here's what we do know. If you focused on color correction, if you're really excited about doing color correction, I guarantee you, you'll make a lot more income. You'll generate a lot more revenue performing color correction services than virtually any other service that you do in the salon. Because that's one thing that our industry is in need of, are people that have expertise in correcting hair color. So go ahead and pause me for a minute. You can come back once you've made your notes, and then we will close off our program. See you in a minute. All right, welcome back. This is the Guru Workshop. This is our facility here in Southern California. We have over 10,000 square feet. It is a 2-story building. We can handle approximately, for a hands-on class, we handle anywhere from 10 to 20 people. For a look and learn program, 30 to 45 people. We like to keep our classes small so that you get good, intimate attention from the people who are doing our training. And but it's a nice facility. We invite you to come and visit with us. It's a great place here in Upland, California. We're very close to the Ontario International Airport. It's only 4 miles from our salon. We have lovely hotels around us. We have several great malls with entertainment and great restaurants. So it's a great place to come and spend some time. And the cost of education coming to our market is much more affordable than it would be if you were to go some of the higher economic cities in the country. All right, my friends. Well, listen, I thank you so much for allowing me to share with you today. I just want to remind you that you can find us at www.guruvillage.net. Come to our website, take a look at our education. It would be under the Guru Boutique. We have a blog page where our gurus pass off information, post information for you. We have lots of interesting and fun things going on there. We invite you to subscribe to our Club Guru newsletter. We send that out once a month. It's got all kinds of good stuff in it. We try to make sure we have it stocked with good meat for you so that you can find it as a valuable tool to help you in the industry. We invite you to come and see us on Facebook at Guru Village. That is our Facebook page. You can also, if you're interested in our secret group called Guru Hair Tribe, it is a brand-free or brand-neutral page where we talk simply about hair color, hair services, growing our industry, and it is a secret group. So it's a very safe place for you to share your observation, challenges, and questions that you have. You can find us on Instagram at Guru Village or at CPT Color, either one of those. We invite you to also join us on YouTube. Every week we do a program called Coffee Talk, where we talk about the issues of the day. We give out some advice and some things, some hot tips that will help you grow as a salon professional. It's a great fun show. We like to have a good time. Sometimes we have guests that we interview. So check us out on YouTube and check us out at Coffee Talk. If you wish to reach out to me at any time, you can reach out to me by dialing 1-844-694-8781. Now, if you can't remember all those numbers, here's all you have to remember. 1-844-MY-GURU-1. Okay, 1-844-MY-GURU-1. And that will reach me directly. And I'd be happy to try and answer your questions or help you out in any way that I can. Truly, our company is dedicated to salon professionals. Our goal is to empower you. In fact, that's one of our mantras. I invite you to log on to our website and you can take a look at the 10 tenets in which we operate our business. We are so grateful that you have chosen us to invest dollars in. And it is my sincere desire and hope that this has been a beneficial session for you. If it has, please share it with your friends. Tell them about us. And we are constantly adding new webinars to our pages on a regular basis. But hope to see you sometime, if not online, if not in a webinar where you hear me pre-recorded, possibly online for one of our live classes in our virtual classroom, or even one of our live classes where I can actually spend time with you. I thank you again. I wish you all the very best. And as I always say, from my heart to yours, I'm Captain Color. I'm out. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you. Bye-bye.